Hey guys, and welcome to another Hypixel API tutorial video. In this video, we'll be going over the friends endpoint on the Hypixel API. So this is our base template, which I've modified a tiny bit, but ignore the stuff that's commented out. I'm going to go over everything, so don't worry about that. For the URL for this endpoint, we're going to be going over just the base template, right? So you start with your HTTPS api.hypixel.net / and then for this endpoint it's friends, so you just put in friends. And then as always, or as per usual with the Hypixel public API, there's the key parameter, so we're going to put in your API key. This is my API key, don't bother trying to use it. By the time you're watching this video, it's already been renewed, so this is no longer a valid key. Alright, so if you haven't watched my first video on how to get your own API key, go ahead and watch that, and then come back. And then there's a second required parameter here. This is the UID field. You cannot replace this with the name field, as you may have seen with the player stats endpoint, stuff like that. You can't do that here. Here, you're required to use UID, okay? They don't care enough to do the conversion from player to UID, and it makes sense, okay? It makes sense because you'll see when you get the response back that all we're getting is in UIDs, and UIDs is generally an easier way to handle players. So they use like UIDs essentially as the primary key rather than names. So just know that you're going to need the UID for this case, okay? For this example, we're going to be using Apple Pie's UID because I know that he has a lot of friends, so it makes a wonderful example for this. And then obviously this is all stuff that we've had before, and I'll be going over this extra stuff in a bit. Now if we go ahead and run this, I'm going to make it so you guys can see my command prompt. I'm going to run that. And this is going to be unreadable. Unreadable, I tell you. Unreadable. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys here. We've got the document, but we're not going to go over that yet, the documentation. We're going to be going over this. So this is what the call looks like when you're not getting spammed in your command prompt. So you'll see there's a lot of these folders, okay? These are all in records. So to start off, you've got success true. So I just verifies that we did get a response back and it's the right response. And then under records, there's one of these folders for every single friend on the player's friends list. Okay, so Apple Pies has over 1,000 friends. There's a lot of people that have a lot of friends. Okay, generally you're gonna get spammed like that if there's over like 10. All right, so this is why I always suggest if you can throw it into a Firefox, it might make it easier to understand what you're looking at. And now let's just open one of these for an example. Open a few of them, just so that you can see the differences a little bit. So there's 4 things in each record. There's underscore ID, which I'll go over in a second. We've got UID sender. So this is the UID of the person who sent the friend request, okay? There's UID receiver, which is the UID of the person who received the friend request and accepted it. And this is the Unix timestamp of when they accepted it, okay? This includes milliseconds, okay? This includes milliseconds. Keep that in mind. This includes milliseconds. So if you're wanting only seconds, you're going to cut off. So just grab this whiteboard here, okay? Cut off these last 3. So it's essentially like this many seconds and then like a little bit under half a second extra, okay? Keep that in mind because we're gonna need it for what's coming up here, okay? Now, this timestamp, sometimes when you get it from Hypixel, for some endpoints, it's accurate. However, sometimes it is not accurate. Some examples of when it's not accurate is the first login date on the player stats endpoint. All right, that is not accurate. If you want a more accurate measure, there's the underscore ID here, okay? This is what we call an object ID, all right? Some people might know this as like a MongoDB object ID if you've used MongoDB at all. This is a special encrypted something. You don't really need to know. It doesn't really matter. Anyways, it's like some sort of a code, right? And it contains a lot of metadata on like when the object was created and such, right? We can go over how to get a more accurate time out of it, okay? Just in case this one isn't accurate, we can get our 100% almost always going to be accurate. Unless there's some trickery going on, this is always going to be a more accurate time, right? So let's go over how to do that. If we go back, I'm going to show you guys my add-on once again. We're going to need two different libraries to do this. We're going to need BaseOn, which has the method object ID, and we're going to need time zone function from date and time. All right. Now, real quick, I'm going to show you guys if you want to print out, instead of printing out all of the data, if you want to print out just a tiny bit of the data, I'll show you guys. You can just do this. So this would only print out the first one, as you'll see, the first record. Just show you that in case you want to just see one. And now what we're going to do is I'll go over this one step at a time, exactly what you're going to do here, okay? So what you're doing is you're taking this first object time, okay? So this is the first friend connection, right? So each element in this records is like a link between two players, right? It's like a friendship object, we can say. So we're going to want to print out our thing, okay? And we have this object, which is our underscore ID object, okay? Or actually, that's just our friendship. We're going to add this to, this is specifically going to request the underscore ID endpoint for that section, okay? Now, we need to turn this, because right now this is just a string, all right? We don't want it to be just a string. We want it to be represented as an object ID, okay? So using object ID from BaseOn, we can tell it that we want this to be an object ID. This is specifically an object ID. And now if we run this, it's really not going to do much for us, right? I can show you real quick. If I run this, it's really not going to do much for us. Okay, it's just going to spit out the string. It's essentially worthless to us. But then, if we do dot generation time on this, so there's a few properties of this object ID. It's not just a string now, it's an object ID. So because of that, there's a few properties, one of which is this generation time thing, okay? So this generation time, I'll show it to you with my, there we go, I'll show you guys my command prompt once again. So here if I run it again, now it'll show us a time. This time is actually when this was created. So this friendship was started, okay, way back in 2015 on, what is that, March 18th, late at night at like 8 o'clock, okay? This time is sometimes misleading though, and I'll show you why. So there's some time zone stuff. Now if you've ever handled time related things in programming, you'll know that time zones are the bane of your existence. However, there's something that's really nice that can come help us. So first off, we've got the dot replace time zone, okay? So this fixes the time zone in case there's any issues. So once again, I'll show you what that looks like if I run it again. So we just ran it, and it's the same, but that's because there's already some time zone stuff there that was already fixed, okay? So we don't have to worry about that. Sometimes this is not already fixed for you, so you've got to fix it manually. This is why I always do this when I'm handling object IDs from BaseOn, okay? You always got to make sure that you're ensuring this stuff is fixed. You don't want to end up with an issue where some sort of issue between time zones that mess up your timing and stuff, or one time it happened, another you think it happened before but it didn't. Anyways, that's still not good enough because we want to compare this to our started date, right? We want to see what's more accurate, our started date or object ID, right? So to do that, we're going to go back, and there's this very handy system from, I think this is from date and time, it might not be. Anyways, it's timestamp, okay? And now when we run this, we get, oh, am I not sure? I forgot to show you guys. There we go. Now we get this time. This time does not include milliseconds. Remember earlier how I said this time includes milliseconds and this one doesn't? This one does not, okay? So you don't have to like remove the last three when comparing, okay? And then if we really want to compare, I can show you guys one at a time what these are. So now if I go back and I print the time, so here for this, we're going to do print, what is this? It's going to be this, and what's it stored under? I'm going to add some spacing to help you guys out if you're newer. It's stored under started. So it's going to be like this, started, just like that. And then we can do divide by 1,000 just to get rid of the last three, okay? And now when we print this out, I'm going to show you guys right here. Oh, what happened there? Not sure what happened. Anyways, there we go. So now that that's run, you can see that in this scenario, these are the same, okay? So we were lucky enough that Hypixel did not mess up this time. They aren't always, you're not always going to be this lucky. Sometimes they mess up. So it's always good to do this. And this scenario is actually more accurate on the started time than it was on the object creation time. Anyways, that's that. So now I've showed you how to use it. We're going to quickly go over the doc just in case anybody wants to see what the doc looks like. And then of course this link's also going to be in the description as always, in case you need a refresher at any given time. So this is a friends endpoint over in documentation method friends. And so the description is just that it returns friendships for a given player. So it returns the friendship objects that are include that player either as the receiver or as the sender. And then two required parameters, so your API key and the UID that you want to put in. And this is an example of a response. There's no comments, but I already went over what all this means, and some of it's like fairly basic, so you should know how this works. Anyways, that's been this tutorial. If you have any suggestions for a specific section of the API that you'd like me to go over, or to prioritize going over, you can definitely comment down below and I'll check that out. Or if you have any questions regarding this tutorial specifically, if you have any issues with anything, you can comment down below and I guarantee I read every comment and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And then obviously, if you like the video, you can like it so other people can see the video more easily when they search it. So if other people need help, they can find it more easily. And then subscribe if you're wanting to stay more in touch with my tutorial videos as they come out, in case you're actually finding these useful. And that's been it for this video. I'll see you guys in the next one.